remind you, marriage is a relationship that was not thought up by man. Human beings didn't figure, oh, this marriage thing will be a great idea. It was something that God decided from the very beginning. And we're told in the beginning, in the book of Genesis, the book of beginnings, that in chapter 1 it tells us about how God created everything in 6 days. And on that 6th day of creation, he created man. And at the end of every day, all but one, of creation, he said the same thing over and over again. He said, it's very good. Behold, it was very good. And at the end of the 6th day of creation, he said, behold, it's very good, because in chapter 1, we're told that he created man and woman. But when we get to chapter 2 of Genesis, we get kind of that zoom-in, close-up view of creation, that 6th day. And we see that God created Adam first. He took some dirt, and he fashioned it into a man, and he breathed into him the breath of life. And he said, okay, now I want you to take care of the garden. And then he looked at man, and he said, you know what, it's not good for man to be alone. And that's the first time in the Bible that God says something wasn't good. He says, it's not good for him to be alone. He says, I'm going to create a helper for him, a perfect companion. So at that point, God brought all the animals to Adam, and he had him name them, Mr. and Mrs. Elephant, Mr. and Mrs. Giraffe, Mr. and Mrs. Labrador Retriever. He went all through the list. Every animal on the planet he named. And I'm sure at the end he was thinking, well, there's a Mr. and Mrs. of all this stuff, but where's Mrs. Adam? And we're told that God said there was not a suitable helper found for him. So at that time he put Adam to sleep. He took a rib from his side and closed the flesh up, and then he fashioned that rib into a woman. And then he woke Adam up, and he brought Eve to Adam. And Adam saw Eve, and he went, wow, this'll do. Says, this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She'll be called woman, because she was taken from man. And we're told in Genesis 2, it says, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. And you know, that doesn't mean that you lose your identity. Doesn't mean that you, all of a sudden, you have to dress alike, although, you know, on your honeymoon and stuff, you get the t-shirts or whatever and wear the same t-shirt. You did that, didn't you, Christy? I knew that. The first one to laugh always did it. But it means that now, everything that you choose to do in this life affects your spouse. From this point on, every decision you make, Travis, is going to affect Vita's life. And every division that Vita makes is going to affect Travis's life. And God has designed it that you would become a unity, okay? That you would be in partnership with one another. And that you would support one another, bless one another, encourage one another, hold one another up in those hard times, and give your perspective and your wisdom in every decision that needs to be made. Now, a wonderful thing about our God is he is the perfect creator, the perfect designer. He designed marriage. He gave us a marriage manual, okay? The Bible is a book that's filled with wonderful wisdom about relationships. And we know that the most important relationship that we find from Genesis all the way to Revelation is his desire to have a relationship with us. Remember, he tells us that sin has separated us from God, and that God designed a plan before he ever created Adam to reconcile sinners to himself. And the plan was made that Jesus, God the Son, would come to this earth, take on the form of human flesh, dwell amongst us, lay aside his glory and his divine prerogatives, and then he would lay his life down and pay the death penalty, which is the penalty for sin. But that he wouldn't stay in the grave, that he would rise again the third day. And so the Bible tells us that. But also in the Bible, we're told, you forget something? Okay. Anyways, I don't know what it is, but we'll find out. We'll get that later. We don't need it yet. Not for another 5 minutes or so. It's okay. But, so, in the instruction manual, there's wonderful instructions for husbands and wives. In Ephesians chapter 5, the Apostle Paul gives us clear instructions on how we should structure and order our marriage relationship. And Travis, he says, husbands, you're the head. Okay, now that doesn't mean you're the supreme dictator. Okay? It means that you're to lead. And he says you're the head of your wife, just as Christ is the head of the church. So as we look at our relationship with Christ and how he leads us, that's the way he would have us lead our wives. Not as a dictator, but with love. You didn't even see that, did you? You had it all along. No. But he doesn't want you to be a dictator. But he does want you to lead, and he wants you to lead by your example. Okay? If you want Vita to be a godly woman, you need to be a godly man. She needs to get up in the morning and find you already sitting there with your nose in this book. Okay? It needs to be your idea. Hey, honey, you want to go to church? Let's go to church today. Okay? It doesn't need to be her idea telling you, hey, we need to go to church. Come on, man. Right? And I know you, so that's probably not going to be a problem. So, but in that leadership role, you lead by your example, and you also give direction to your family. What I've found is that my wife knows me better than anybody else in the world. The Lord knows me better than her, but she knows me. I mean, 41 years, you know, it's been a while. She's kind of figured me out. She knows my blind spots, and you're going to get to know his blind spots, his weak points, and you need to listen to her because she's going to give a different perspective on decisions. But really, the responsibility is going to lie with you for the decisions you make in the household. As the leader, as the head of the household, God's going to hold you responsible for that. But he also tells you another thing. He says you're to love her the way that Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. So, understanding that that love is not, it was written in Greek, right? There's 4 different words in Greek that we translate with the English word love. And this is not the word that means, oh, I love ice cream, right? Or, you know, I love it when the sun shines. Things like that. This is the kind of love that is a decision type of love. It's where you make choices. You choose to love her unconditionally. You choose to love her inexhaustibly. You choose to love her even if she doesn't respond to you. Because that's the kind of love that God had for us. He sent his son to die for us. Whether we receive that or not, that's our choice, right? She has the same choice. As you lead in your family, she gets to choose to follow. And Vita, that's your responsibility, is to submit yourself to your own husband in everything. And we know that that word submit doesn't mean that now you've thrown away your rights, that you're a doormat, that you're somebody that can be abused by him or used by him. You're a person who volunteers to let him lead and supports him by giving him your perspective on the decisions that you need to make. Because God made us different, men and women. We think differently. We have different perspectives of all those decisions. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why it wasn't good for man to be alone. Because we're guys, we're just going to get the job done, right? She's the one that's going to worry about if you're going to hurt somebody's feelings in the middle of it, right? Right? It's the relationship thing. That's the big thing for her. So God can put it in you. And as you choose to do that, you need to understand that that means that you get to do that voluntarily. He doesn't tell you to do that. God tells you to, and then you entrust yourself to the Lord, because the Lord is the one who can give Travis wisdom and direction. Even if he's headed down a path that you can see, there's a cliff at the end of that path. We're going to be in trouble. If you go to the Lord